Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to our NASPA Wellness and Health Promotion Knowledge Community webinar today on engaging faculty and supporting student well-being. My name is Marlena Widman, and I'm the Wellness and Health Promotion KC Professional Development Co-Manager. Make sure if you're not already signed up for our newsletter, make sure you sign up by following the instructions on this website that I'll put in this chat right here. If we do have some open positions in the KC, so if you're interested in joining as a leadership team member, just send me an email and I'll put my email in the chat here as well. My contact information will also be shown at the end of the presentation. Please note that today's webinar will be recorded. As our presenter, Jen Jacobson, is sharing information, feel free to use the chat feature to ask questions. There will also be plenty of time at the end to ask questions. I'm going to pass it over now to Jen to introduce herself.
Thank you, Marlena. I'm so delighted to be here. I'm so delighted that you all are here in April, and I'm guessing most folks here are in student affairs, and we know what a month that April can be. So thank you so much for being here. And I just noted I forgot to put my email anywhere on my slides. I will fix that before I send my slides to Marlena for distribution, but I also put it in the chat. I'm happy for people to reach out. I'm just trying to get my screen sharing. There we go. All right. Well, thank you for coming. I'm hopeful that we are able to make this somewhat conversational. I'm guessing that's maybe University of California, Riverside over there with the 6 for 1, 7 for 1. That's really exciting. But I'm hoping some of this could be conversational because I don't have all the answers up in this area. I have some ideas from conversations with staff members, faculty members, students at a variety of institutions. I called this engaging faculty and supporting student well-being. Really, if I had my druthers, I would like to call it engaging faculty in low effort, role appropriate ways to support student well-being, which by the way, leads to academic engagement. But that's awfully wordy and awkward. But I want to start out by thanking folks. First of all, the Wellness and Health Promotion Knowledge Community for inviting me today. I'd like to thank Marlena. We've been connected through the knowledge community now for almost a year, and we've actually met in person, and we're going to meet in person again in ACHA, and that's been delightful. And I want to congratulate her again for being the knowledge community's new professional award winner this year. Andy Tracy, with whom I've done a lot of this work, she's an associate professor of psychology at Grinnell College. She and I used to both work there. Now I'm at Macalester, but as maybe many of you have learned, as a staff member, it really takes a willing faculty member to open the doors and get seats at some tables. And Andy's been a tremendous partner in that. So much of this work comes out of Centers for Scholarship and Teaching. So some of this is from the Jan Siri Center for Scholarship and Teaching here at Macalester, the Grinnell College Center for Teaching, Learning, and Assessment, which sponsored 2 summer workshops on this topic. And then Associated Colleges of the Midwest, who sponsored a faculty career enhancement grant that let us run a workshop in summer 2022 virtually with 37 faculty and teaching staff across 10 institutions. Worth noting, when Andy and I proposed this workshop to the ACM in fall of 2019, we were told that student well-being isn't an area for faculty development. And then it's like something worldwide happened because in fall of 2021, when we reproposed almost the exact same proposal, the answer was unanimous by the deans of all the colleges, and they asked if they could give us $10,000 more than what we asked for. So thinking about how we're capitalizing on this cultural moment. But I wonder if folks would be willing to use the chat. Again, I noted it's April in Student Affairs. What dog are you today? Got a 4, 1, a 4, a 5. We are all over. 4, a 3 for sure. I know I sort of relate to the 3. An 8. Okay. Oh, hello, Jack from Denison. Jack was at our pre-conference session at NASPA Strategies. Oh, UCR, we have some aggregate. in 8 and 7. So yeah, we are feeling all the things today and a wide range of things. Some of you already took this initiative in the chat, but if you would share your name, your pronouns if you choose, what institution or organization you're with, and your role. And that will give us all a sense of who is in the space. And again, I hope we'll have some time for some collaborative conversation. I saw Lewis University. UCR is your conference room. Well, great to see a whole team from Lewis. Certainly this is work, just like public health, no one does public health alone. No one does student well-being alone. So glad to see the team here. Brandon from, Associate Director of Advising Academic Success at Columbia Business School. I feel like there was another college I missed. Indiana University, Program Project Director in Kinesiology. University of Denver, Coordinator Health Promotion for Mental Health and Suicide Prevention. Yes, it is a mouthful. My first role at Macalester was Director for Sexual Violence Prevention Education. That's 13 syllables. Health Promotion Specialist at Rochester. Director of Student Wellness at Denison. WGU Online, located in Denver. Weber State, Executive Director of Student Wellbeing. I love all these different titles we have. We have California Institute of Integral Studies, Waukesha County Technical Director. You can tell I've lived in Wisconsin. I pronounce Waukesha. And University of Iowa, and a faculty member. That's great. So we really have a good multidisciplinary team here. So the learning outcomes I promised. Identify some of the perceived benefits and barriers for faculty in supporting student well-being, determining strategies for student affairs, particularly health promotion professionals, to engage faculty in lower effort, role-appropriate ways for faculty to support student well-being in various contexts, and develop a list of resources, websites, consortia, and colleagues to continue this conversation and help problem solve moving forward. We're so lucky to be in the consortia right now of the health promotion and wellness knowledge community. So faculty and staff collaborations. I wonder if folks are willing to think about a time that there was a fantastic collaboration between faculty and staff about student well-being and what went right. And relatedly, like what gets in the way. You don't have to answer both questions, but I would love if someone would be willing to just unmute themselves and share. So the conversational approach here will be richer than just me talking. Also, shout out to Harper College in Palatine, Illinois. I grew up in Schaumburg. My uncle was a head football coach at Harper for 34 years. I've spent a lot of time on that campus. Someone willing to share about a fantastic collaboration? Or are you all here because you don't know?
I think sorry, this is Beth McPartlin here. I think one collaboration I've had is when we hosted a program called Sex in the Dark on our campus, and we emailed some different faculty members to offer extra credit for students to attend. And we actually had quite a few students attend that particular program. It was a night program, and we are a commuter campus with no live-on housing, so it's difficult to get students sometimes to come to the night programs. And so that was a good collaboration with faculty, and it increased our numbers, and students are very interested in the topic as well. So I would say that would be a success from our end.
Thank you for that. And again, right, like when I talked a little bit in the beginning, talking about low effort, what a great example of like offering that extra credit is a low effort way for faculty to be involved, but show investment in student well-being.
Hi, I can jump in. I'm Amy
Great.
Mahan, the Director of Mental Health Services at Waukesha County Technical College. And over the last couple of years, a smaller group of faculty and student services staff here co-developed training to help faculty primarily, but also student services staff to recognize when a student might be in distress, be able to respond effectively, and then how to provide a really good referral. So we actually have some of the faculty that are also presenting that material on campus.
Oh, I love that.
trainings or partnering with a student services staff. And that's been really important because I think many times when we're sharing this information, people feel that they have to be a counselor or they have to be part of the wellness team or they have to, right? They have to have that background in training at a professional level. And that's really not true. So I think having other faculty hear this coming from their peers has been really effective.
I love that, Amy. And it's like I planted you here, right? To forecast some of what we're going to talk about, what some of the barriers are for our faculty and what they think the ask is. If you don't mind me asking a follow-up, how did you get faculty invested enough to co-present? I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, so I think it started because this came out of working with JED. We're a JED campus now, and so when we first had our cross collaborative, right, our team for collaboration across campus, there were certain faculty that rose to the top that said, "I'm just really passionate about helping you with this effort," and so they have continued to stay on as willing folks, and their deans or associate deans supported the time and the work that they were spending with us. So my hope is that we are continuing to recruit that group and help grow them, so that we don't peter out, I guess.
Great. And I see Erica from JED is here on the webinar with us today. And what a great, right? Like that's one of the stated goals of JED is to, make it so that it's just not the Health and Wellness Center in charge of student well-being. So what a great partnership that came out of that. And I love that you talked about the institutional support that the deans had to support that time. I'm an MPH, so you know that, right? Like I'll get my degree taken away if I don't talk about the socio-ecological model every time I present. I was pretty old before I realized student affairs has been doing this for a long time, and it's Brofenbrenner's nephew works here in our campus at McAllister. So I've learned a lot from my MED friends. But like so many times when we're thinking about this work on campus, we have colleagues who want to focus this all on an interpersonal lens. If only students all did this, if only we give them the knowledge of this, if we only had them all read this book. And we all know here knowledge alone doesn't change behavior, and we have a unique opportunity at colleges to influence different levels of the socio-ecological model. And having that faculty staff collaboration is now interpersonal, institutional, and the support from the deans in that is a good use of faculty time is a huge institutional win. The other thing, I'm Gen X and I am old school. And the other piece that I tend to lean on when I think about starting to tackle any challenge that's around behavior is my brain goes to the health belief model. And to distill that just for a minute, in thinking about how are we partnering with faculty? How are we inviting them in? Starting from the place of what are the perceived benefits for our faculty when we think about engaging them around student well-being? How do we help amplify or name those benefits for them, especially helping them conceptualize that academic success, however we define that, isn't in opposition with student well-being. It actually tends to be in alignment. And how do we think about their barriers, right? And that barrier of, I'm so afraid a student's going to disclose to me they're struggling because I'm not a counselor. How can I help them in that moment? The other pieces we'll talk about today too are how are we helping our faculty build their self-efficacy around this? How are we creating some cues to action? And how do we think about some of those modifying variables? When I think about the benefits for faculty, and this is a place where my colleague Andy and I started with, is looking at National College Health Assessment data. And we were looking at it, this presentation was for associated colleges in the Midwest schools. They tend to be small. So we looked at NCHA data from spring 2022, colleges under 5,000 bachelor's degree granting. In our conversations with Mary Hoban at the ACHA, she's like, yes, this is true for all schools. But just the way we can't disentangle the relationship between our students' self-reported health, their sense of belonging, and their GPA. GPA is a proxy. It's not the same as academic engagement. It's the best tool we have in our quantitative data to work with right now until Andy and I run the world and we embed some of the questions we want in the NCHA. But we know that faculty want student engagement and student success, and it's really interesting when you start telling them the story that GPA isn't just about studying harder, it's about student health as well, right? If Andy and I were going to fake data, we would not make it nearly this linear in terms of the relationship between students self-reporting excellent or very good overall health and GPA. This is no surprise to anyone in this room, right? Because we work with students, we know our students who are doing well in one area of their lives tend to be doing well in more areas of their lives or better able to engage. But sometimes it's really helpful with faculty to actually show them the data. Andy knows how to actually do the statistics. I don't. If you are in my boat, like I work a lot with our institutional research here at McAllister. Sometimes I hire very smart undergrads. You don't have to be really good at statistics to be able to start looking at these relationships on your own campus. Self-reported health and belonging, right? So our students who self-report that they agree with belonging are much more likely to also say their health is excellent or very good than students who don't, right? So again, like not being able to disentangle the health and belonging piece. And then the belonging and the GPA piece and how linear that looks, right? And we know our students might look at this question all sorts of ways when they're asked whether or not they belong at their university. Some of them might be thinking about that through an academic lens and some might not. But again, so like this relationship, we can't disaggregate. If this were just a presentation on the data, I would show you the really interesting stuff about what happens when we start disaggregating this by identity. And that's the advantage of working with a data set of multiple colleges, is having a big enough set. But we can also see our students who self-report less good health and less belonging tend to be our domestic BIPOC students, our students who self-report as gay, lesbian, bisexual, pansexual, asexual, our students who self-report being trans or non-binary, our students who self-report as having a disability. So again, right, like this isn't just a matter of, hey, student, you need to try harder in class. It's helping tell the story to our faculty. It's all of these factors together. I'm married to a faculty member who works at a different institution than mine. I have several close friends who are faculty members, colleagues, and I'm sensitive to the fact of how they are being messaged to from higher ed, right? So we know in the course of the pandemic in particular, they're being told there's a mental health crisis on campus and faculty need to do something about student well-being, student mental health. I agree that they need to be partners in this, but they are hearing that they're responsible for student well-being, they're responsible for student mental health. You know, like I hear a lot of like, I don't know how to refer, what our resources are, or are students expecting me to be a counselor and talk to them more and use my office hours for that? The other things I hear is, you know, our faculty were really asked to offer a lot of academic flexibility in the height of the pandemic and when things were shifting to remote and all of that. And coming out of the most intense part of COVID, really struggling with, am I supposed to still be as academically flexible as I was 2 years ago? Because I don't know that that's helpful for our students to have endless flexibility, and I don't think it's helpful for me. We're hearing a lot about creating a culture of kindness, building student resilience. This is a big, a lot of us, right, in this space might do some of this in our day-to-day work all of the time. It's a big ask for our faculty who don't yet have this mindset, might not have the training, might think that these skills are further out of their reach than it really is. I had I think this webinar that's happening next week is really interesting about putting on your own mask first, you know, educating, providing self-care in today's environment. But like, how do you provide self-care to someone else when it's self-care? And when we think about the mask, it's putting on your mask so you can help someone else. So like our faculty are pretty stressed receiving these messages. And what happens when we send them these messages and don't help them frame of what are the tools, what actually are low effort, role appropriate ways for faculty to engage in supporting student well-being and mental health? When we don't help share some of those answers, we get venting, right? So it is so funny, right? So this is well before the pandemic. It's 5 years ago that Emma Kerr wrote the whole piece about professors are talking about students' grandparents again. If you are friends with faculty members on social media. We know we have faculty members in this space. We know this is the time of the semester where our faculty friends start posting things like this, right? And it's a symptom of them feeling so caught, right? So I once taught an 8 a.m. class, so many grandparents died that semester, then I moved my class to 3 p.m. No more deaths, and that, my friend, is how I save lives. So, right, this is all from 5 years ago. Literally 2 months ago, I was at faculty athletic rep orientation for Division III at the NCAA, and I walked up to a group of faculty from all kinds of different institutions, and they were having the conversation about students giving them excuses about dead grandparents. And so my question for the table was, I said, oh, what do you think's really going on that they don't want to tell you about, that they would rather tell you about the dead grandparents? And like half the table kind of kept going on in the same vein, and the other half stopped and actually, after reflecting for 3 seconds, had really good answers about why students might not want to tell them why they really needed to miss class or an assignment, right? So taking folks out of that moment. Our faculty colleagues and friends, just like us, we experience fundamental attribution error, right? If I asked you all if you've gotten enough sleep this week, and if you haven't, you could probably name a lot of institutional factors and external demands that has made that happen. How do we help remind our faculty friends that when students haven't gotten enough sleep and they're drowsing in your class and that they might also have external factors beyond their control that are impacting that? So a turn in the conversation that I've sort of been delighted to see, and I will be curious when I have opportunities to kind of, have this conversation with faculty, right? Like, it's just the venting is natural and human and happens for some real frustrations. But I really thought this was really interesting, is what's the worst case scenario if you just accept all excuses? What's the worst case scenario if you don't? As far as I can tell, for the former, it's someone who probably isn't a very good student anyway gets a free extension. And for the latter, someone who's already in pain has to suffer even more. And I just love this when we talk about what's lower effort for faculty. My professor hot take is that trusting students makes life so much better than assuming they're all lying or trying to cheat on everything. We know that's not practical in every aspect of a faculty member's life, but I'm really pleased, like, the conversation is changing in this direction. So thinking about, right, like that health belief model, like highlighting those benefits for the faculty, and we'll talk more as we go through strategies, what some of the benefits are. The barriers are they're being told to attend to student well-being and mental health, and no one is telling them how in a way that is not overwhelming faculty and like another class prep and damaging faculty's own health and wellness at the expense of helping students. The cues to action, where are there places in our environment that actually, like, when do we talk to faculty about this? Probably we shouldn't wait till the week before finals. We should talk about it in the summer when they're starting to design their syllabi. But I also want to name a little bit about modifying variables. Modifying of variables includes people's identities and their lived experiences. Every time I have facilitated a workshop on this, the faculty who are the first to say they are bought in are our pre-tenure faculty, our female identified faculty, our trans and non-binary faculty, and our BIPOC faculty. And they will say, we are bought in and we need to pass a 3rd-year review. We need to pass a 10-year review. If I am too soft, that gets counted against me because our institution values rigor. I always like to remind people rigor literally means harsh inflexibility. I don't know if that should be our academic goal. But just a reminder, like to Amy's response early about some of that upstream institutional commitment about deans being on board, we have to remember there's this external pressure for faculty to appear to be grading hard enough and to be a tough enough professor for them to actually get to stay at our institution and continue to teach. And so that is a system. I think here at Macalester, we don't call them student evaluations of teaching, it's student feedback. And there's a question on that form that says, my professor is accessible and available. Number one, that's a double-barreled question. But number two, like, what does it mean to be available? Is the faculty member who is setting a reasonable boundary and saying, if you email me past 7 o'clock, I'm not going to answer until the next business day, does that person, like, are they seen as unavailable, right? And we know pressure falls differentially depending on our faculty's identities. So starting to think about some strategies, and you all should warm up because I'm going to ask you all, after I talk about some strategies, I'm going to ask you for strategies that either have worked for you if you're a faculty member or worked for you in your collaborations with faculty members. Literally, right, some of the easiest things is there's no reason why things in a syllabus have to be due at midnight or have to be due at class at 8 o'clock the next morning. What happens if folks set a deadline for 6 o'clock or 9 o'clock, right? I'm in graduate school right now, and it's really interesting. Usually my classes had Sunday night deadlines, and now they have Friday at 8 p.m. deadlines, and that changes how I spend my time. It doesn't have to be blanket across the whole campus for some of this to work. One of the things Andy and I recently recognized is a lot of learning management systems default automatically to a midnight deadline. And so we're working with to learn, can we set that? Because actually that would be zero effort for faculty if institutionally we just made the default say 8 o'clock. Faculty can change it if they want. We're not impinging on faculty freedom instead of having the default literally be a midnight deadline. How are we helping faculty set due dates, especially with breaks? It's still a struggle on a lot of campuses. Faculty have a lot they're expected to pack into a term or a semester. But what does it mean when students have papers due the Monday after Thanksgiving, the Monday after spring break? We know faculty might not get that time as breaks because they might be grading, they might be course planning, but are we also dumping that on students that it's not truly a break for them if a paper is due over at the end of spring break? Extension policies, again, you can look at the Chronicle and Inside Higher Ed. There are so many conversations of what we do for extensions, but there's a lot of good thinking out there. And there's some of this on the ACM website that was an outcome of our workshop. We learned some faculty have the students collaborate on setting an extension policy on the first day of class. We have some folks, right, that works in small classes, not large classes. Some folks have been doing a preferred by deadline and then a hard deadline. And there's some interesting research on that, but how do we help faculty think about that? Because it seems like more flexibility than we were used to in the past is a good thing, but endless flexibility doesn't help the students or the faculty members. How are we communicating about office hours? A lot of our students, it's part of the hidden curriculum that they don't know what office hours are for. So how are faculty being really open about inviting folks in and thinking about how they do that? And helping students understand what office hours are for. To someone who's brand new to a college experience with no family members who went to college, they might think that that means when the faculty member is in their office doing work with the door shut. So how do we make that inviting? Sharing campus resources. So we recently completed the NCHA at McAllister's campus, and its scores very high. Our college cares about student health and well-being. And in several different places, I've asked our students, well, what would make someone agree with that statement? What is the college doing that makes you feel that way? And in every student space, they said, well, some of our faculty put on the syllabus information about mental health resources, and they put on information about Title IX, and they put on information about this. I would have never guessed that because I'm like, oh, if the students have it on every syllabus, it's just boilerplate and they start to ignore it. It's really interesting non-scientific study that our students are citing that as an institutional commitment to health and well-being. That doesn't take our faculty a lot of time. One other piece, that came up in one of our first workshops was someone working in academic advising. And if you've had any work with growth versus fixed mindset, was still sending the same number of emails, but changed how she sent the language in the emails. It used to be, I hear you're struggling in a class, whatever class, do you want to come in and do, and work together? And she changed it to, I hear that you have an opportunity for some growth in this class, or I hear you know, that in this class, would you like to come in and collaborate on some strategies? And changing it to like not highlighting the struggle, but highlighting the opportunity and growth opportunity. She got 3 times as many student responses to emails that took the same amount of time. Now, she had more business coming in her door and academic success, but it's just interesting the language in the email matters. Even simpler than this for our faculty, right? I started out with that dog check-in. Students say, right? Like when faculty take the minute in the beginning of class before getting down to business to stop and take the temperature of the room, that's really important. We had a faculty member in our first workshop say that she started doing a 2-minute meditation with her class in the beginning, and people could opt out as long as they sat quietly. But she said, you know, she would rather give up that 2 minutes of class time and then students were really present for what's going on in class, than that awkward transition of getting started while everyone's still shuffling around, still thinking about what happened right before they walked in the door. So I thought that was interesting too. You know, we talk about class visits on a lot of campuses. If there's a traditional kind of first year course, sometimes they invite campus partners in. We try to be really deliberate at Macalester. Our top thing that we go in and talk about is procrastination, because when we look at our NCHA data, the number one thing our students say they have a problem or challenge with, that's also a double-barreled question, is procrastination. But part of it is, right, when our health promotion team goes in there and talks to students about procrastination and help unpack that it's usually about perfectionism and not about laziness, our faculty are a recipient of that messaging too. Our faculty often have never heard that before. And we actually get stellar feedback in our assessment when we ask not just the students, but the faculty about their takeaways. And it helps them think a little more generously about our students too. You might be on a bigger campus of where you might have a don't cancel that class opportunity, but really thinking strategically, you know, sometimes people want to reach out to us and say, come in and do stress management. And that little bit of education of actually, we can offer something we have really good assessment on that we think is a really good academic need for your class or an academic fit. You heard me reference NCHA. It's one of the lower effort ways we involve faculty, either as partners in promoting survey participation. You know, our data science classes really like using parts of subsets of our data for coursework. We've actually been offering it to some of the work study students who are doing data analysis. Those of you with student development degrees know there's nothing more interesting for our students at this developmental age than themselves and their peers. Collaborating on the interpretation of data, presenting this data back in faculty spaces. Anytime a Center for Teaching and Learning or the department chairs or anyone invites me into anything, they know me by now to know that part of what I'm going to do is bring some data, maybe in a fun pub quiz format, but sharing that back out. But this also helps make faculty collaborators in promoting accurate social norms and expectancies. Our faculty tend to be no better than our students and some of the rest of us in being subject to the same norms, misperceptions, and faulty expectations as anyone else, and they have so much power. We recently embedded a brand new custom question in our NCHA. We asked our students, how often are all-nighters academically necessary? I had no idea what to think. I would have guessed we would have been lucky if that answer was 50%. 65.3% of Macalester students said all-nighters are never academically necessary. They had a range of like 1 to 2 times a semester, 1 to 2 times a month, weekly or more often. That is a heck of a social norms data point that I'm going to share with faculty, because faculty might have had the same misperceptions as I did about Macalester students. And, you know, how helpful is it for faculty members to be armed with that? And again, you know, those of you who were at NASPA Strategies when Andy and I presented, right, thinking about actually how do we offer to our faculty, a lot of times they are our psychology or public health or other partners, information opportunities to embed in their class. Andy taught a first year tutorial at Grinnell called Go the F to Sleep. And right, we're talking about that socio-ecological model. She had students conduct the college sleep environmental scan of campus. So even first years can be doing this work. At McAllister, we have a 200 level health psychology course. We meet with the professor in the summer and say, hey, this is some of the coolest data we have. And we'll come to class and pitch and give data sets in all these areas for your students to choose to develop a campaign. We learned a lot about what interests our students. That is in order of what how many groups wanted to choose which one. They were not that interested in about driving under the influence of cannabis. They were super interested in HPV vaccination. And they actually came up with some pretty good health promotion marketing for us. The neuroscience seminar Andy did at Grinnell on sleep, where students, their final project was making videos about sleep, and right, those videos are great to show then in other places. The faculty member was going to be teaching a neuroscience seminar anyway. This topic really allowed for some opportunities, both for all the students in the class to learn, for the faculty member in the class to learn, and with permission, sharing this in some other places, because we know our students want to hear from other students. And lastly, the community health psychology seminar at McAllister. We're going to be building a new residence hall and thinking about how we build well-being into the built environment. So what a great opportunity for our students to wrestle with this, and then sharing some of the solutions with the folks doing the planning. But the idea that we could bring to the faculty member a pitch, some ideas, and help them think about what might be an engaging seminar for their students. So, you know, those course integration benefits, increasing student engagement, our faculty are learning about the student experience. Students are integrating scholarly research, evidence-based practice, and outside the classroom applications. It connects academic life and residential life, doesn't sacrifice the integrity or academic content of the course. So I'm curious, what successes have any of you had in terms of collaborating with faculty and helping them think about, or offering, or you as a faculty member yourself, and how you think about syllabus design, or how you think about bringing some of this content into courses? Yeah, Jack.
Hello, hi. So love this conversation. Honestly, after NASPA, I took a lot of your strategies and recommendations and brought them back, talked with my provost, dean of faculty, and the Center for Teaching and Learning. And while there was some hesitation to simply take recommendations, they were very interested to hear the strategies and let me present just ideas that are happening nationally to all the chairs and different departments. Because once we started that conversation, then they started to have a lot of feedback and ideas and started this integration, both within the classwork, how to integrate it, but then also in looking at the syllabi. And since even after the presentations, I've heard like our biology, our economics department, our global commerce, they've come together as faculty and started having real talk from what we've seen nationally. So it's not putting it on them that they're the issue, but these are things that everyone's experiencing, and so that they can start having that convo.
Right. Oh, I love that, Jack. And I love that you had some of at least the buy-in to get in front of people from your provost and from the chairs, right? Because faculty aren't like, quote unquote, the problem. They're being asked to do something that they're not necessarily, like, if they haven't been given the tools of how to think about how to support student well-being, how to support student mental health in ways that make sense in their role, given all the other competing demands they have. So right, a lot of this is how do we help faculty know where to begin? And once they start having this conversation, the generativeness of the ideas is amazing, right? Because they are experts on their classroom experiences. Anyone else want to share? It doesn't have to be like the same kind of thing Jack shared.
We can share. My name is Melissa. I'm from Lewis University, and we integrate a lot of mental health, well-being things in our Cornerstone seminar, which is our Introduction to College Experience course. And we not only put the content in there, but oftentimes we'll have somebody from our Student Wellness Center come and present the content. and not just about our student center, but they provide stats. We have the bystander intervention module in there. The students have to do the alcohol EDU surveys as part of this class. So there's a lot of things that implement or can affect students' mental health. We also, we have a lot of staff that actually teach this course, so it's not always working with faculty, but they're still very involved and the content is there for the students' benefit.
Yeah, what a great opportunity with that course. And where there's like a level of institutional buy-in is it sounds like that's probably a required course and
It
has
is.
academic credit, right?
Yes, yes.
So
for
that's,
students.
yeah,
First
so
year,
that's, oh, go ahead.
first year or transfer.
Yeah, so what a great commitment to from your university that's worthy of academic credit, because that is the currency of our institutions and that it's required, right? So there's something of value in this for every one of our students. So yeah, what a great opportunity. I wish that I could have students for a whole semester or more than one class even, to be able to do some of the good work that you're doing. And what rich data sets to have all of your incoming and transfer students to be taking some of that EverFi, right? That feedback survey and getting that collective information. So
Right.
thank you.
Yeah, one of the other assignments that we do in this class is make students go around campus to learn where things are around the campus. And we include the Student Wellness Center in there. So they also have to find out exactly where they're located in case they need that service.
I love that so much. I think about when I was in charge of some of our orientation sessions at Grinnell, and I'm old school enough that I had students write on note cards afterwards, like after the Title IX and sexual respect session. What's one takeaway you have? What's one question you still have? And like there was a year where like the one takeaway was Grinnell has a lot of resources. And the question they still had was, where are they? Right. And that's like on a teeny tiny campus, but it was such a good reminder that it's not enough always to tell our students about resources, but the opportunity for them to walk and see maybe before they need it is really important. Yeah, that's our, our students. I work with our student athlete mentors at McAllister. They're primarily second or third year students. And they're like, the biggest challenge is we know about resources and everyone tells us this like right away when we're first years, or sometimes our coaches will share at the beginning of the semester, but we need people to tell us about these at different times and remind us that they're there. And it sounds like that class does some of that good work. So thank you so much. I'm gonna talk just a little bit. One of the things that Andy and I had done at Grinnell, there's lots of different formats. We got the dean's office to sponsor with just like a little bit of fruit and a little bit of pastries. We did a couple summers where there was a summer faculty and staff reading, and boy, did we learn a lot from each other. Some of the kinds of books, and I'll send these slides to Marlena, so don't feel like you have to write it down, but these were some of the books that we had talked about. We know there's some controversy in any of the books we're talking about. Privileged Poor has some challenges, but also had a lot of really great takeaways. But some of the opportunities that we have for reading groups, our Center for Teaching and Learning here at McAllister just sent out the email for making a call of like, if we were going to do a reading group, what would you want? And I'm going to send them like 17 things. When we presented at NASPA Strategies, we got a lot of really interesting ideas from the group there too. So there's an improving learning and mental health in the college classroom, relationship-rich education, courage to teach. So this one, I love that people suggested it. I recently bought it. I suspect I might be hate reading it, but The Coddling of the American Mind, because he's just came out with a new book on social media. But with the frequency that parents and other folks ask me about it, I'm like, I better read this so I know what it is that they are taking away from that, so I can have a good conversation about it, right? Essays on teaching what scares people, student ready college, right? McNair et al. That has been a really great one of if we are admitting students, then why are we expecting them to like perform all over again to be able to engage with us? this goes back to socio-ecological model. Are we putting too much on individuals? If we're admitting students, we should be ready to receive the students. Radical Hope, a teaching manifesto. And then I'm really excited for Kate Denial's Pedagogy of Kindness to come out this summer. So really excited about those pieces. Waukesha has a year-long training for faculty to build skills in planning and preparing, building an inclusive and positive environment, instruction, and assessment. Yeah, what a place to embed some of this information, right? Because our faculty do want our students to be well, aside from the academic engagement, but especially because of the academic engagement. How do we give them the tools to do that? What a great opportunity. So it's not right, like the list of books here isn't like this is what to assign to faculty. It's these are some options of if we were going to come together in a community of discussion, what might be some opportunities for that. You know, not too dissimilar from folks who think about what they want as a common read for their students. We talked a little bit about strategies already. I just want to share out some resources and then open it up to questions, to you sharing resources, other strategies, other things you've tried, because we are all learners together, co-creating knowledge. To me, like the OG of this work is the work done at Simon Fraser University. They're in the land of the Okanagan Charter. You could spend a full day navigating their website about all of their tools for well-being and the integrating well-being into learning environments, tools in the classroom. We don't always need to reinvent the wheel, but like thinking about what Jack said earlier, how do we bring and say, hey, here's some of the national conversation going on. How do I help us engage with it? And we might come up with something that is an even better fit for our institution. But like, that's just an amazing library there. WashU in St. Louis, their Center of Teaching and Learning, again, has a guide from 2002 that you can download. And it talks about not only, right, like how we think about building in social connection in our classrooms and compassion and stress reduction, belonging and growth mindset, gratitude and purpose, that's a long list. But also how we think about supporting students in distress. So that both and piece, right? Our friends at Iowa State have some really interesting work on embedding our student well-being and learning environments. Laura Bessler there is a rock star, but one of the things I really like, right? So like the mindfulness and gratitude stand out a little bit, but the normalizing help seeking right there, embedding that in the classroom piece is so important. We know that a lot of our students don't take advantage of our free resources because they think somehow it means that they are not ready for college, that it's a deficit model piece, if they need that extra help, that it's remedial, when actually it's a sign of strength to use those resources. And then lastly, some of the work done by the ACM, Student Wellbeing and Academic Engagement group is right there on the ACM website in terms of a lot of the ideas and suggestions, and it's organized sort of by level of like what's syllabus level, what's classroom management level, what's department or institutional level. And then part of our goal at those workshops, right, was to radicalize our faculty colleagues into helping rally for institutional change, and they've been fantastic. And then just this February, if you're a podcaster, Inside Higher Ed has like a 19-minute podcast with Jody Green, who's Associate Campus Provost for Academic Success at UC Santa Cruz. It's a Hispanic serving institution, about ways for faculty, for engaging faculty and student success. As a procrastinator myself, I just listened to it this morning, and there's some great pieces in there about thinking about flexibility. I'm curious from you all, this is my last slide. What other resources have we missed? What other strategies have you all been thinking about or either wanting to try or have tried that is making a difference? Or what are you now curious about?
A resource that I like, oh, hi, by the way, I'm Brooke Clubs at Southeast Missouri State University. I really appreciate having this opportunity to tune in here. Is the Florida State University Resilience Project. Has anyone else utilized that resource? I see at least one person nodding. I did their summer program that was online for college student well-being and resilience. And I actually garnered a lot of really good resources to use in my, I teach student affairs professionals in our higher education administration program, and I have a wellness and higher ed class. And so utilizing a lot of the materials from that has been helpful. And then also Breathe for Change. Is anyone familiar with Breathe for Change?
Yes, I'm actually part of their 200 and 300.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I know that was really designed a little bit more for like K-12 or preschool to 12 educators. But it's been really, I did it in the summer of 2020, when what else was I gonna do? And I just got a lot of different techniques that I could employ in the classroom, even though I had college students, one of which is just taking 3 collective breaths, very similar to the meditation technique you mentioned, Jen. We just take 3 collective breaths together. If people aren't comfortable closing their eyes, I put a picture up of something, that's relaxing on the screen. And I started that when we were all still masked and sanitizing between every class, and everything just felt so chaotic. But I'm continuing to do it now, and students have told me that they appreciate it, that they use it in other areas of their life, like before going into a meeting or before working on a paper. And that was just how we started things with Breathe for Change. So those are a couple of resources that I've really appreciated.
Thank you for that. And again, right, like when we talk about low effort ways, I mean, I imagine it might have felt vulnerable and risky to start with the 3 breaths, but lowish effort to integrate that into your class, and I suspect well worth the trade-off in time.
Yeah, it takes about, 45 seconds. And yeah, it's very valuable.
I'm happy to share a few things. Thanks, Jen. This has been really good. I've got a lot of takeaways to work on, but I'm Michelle Jungbauer with Western Governors University. As I said in the chat, that's National Online University. So put in a plug for those that may have online hybrid along with traditional brick and mortar. We're advocates that online students need just the same amount of support or more in student well-being. So we're very passionate about community of care in an online setting and what that looks like, and how we can be successful in raising the well-being of our students in order to support their academic success and general well-being. A couple things we've recently done that have helped build that awareness and that culture of well-being across our organization is developing a student well-being champion program. We just rolled that out last month, and where faculty members from across all 4 of our university schools and college programs and different service programs and such. So we try to have good representation from across very large organization. And we meet once a month, and they are tasked with certain things to take back to their college or their service area to help build well-being awareness and student engagement with the many free services that are offered. And that's been real successful. It's kind of feels like a bit of a grassroots way to help build that awareness and engagement in the well-being space. And the other is, I loved all the resources about integrating into the academic courses, and that's on our radar. We're starting with an integration into our faculty training courses. Because we're all separate across the nation, a lot of our ongoing faculty education programs are done asynchronously in a robust course setting. And instead of having one course on student well-being and all the resources to train our faculty, we've dispersed it into pop-ups in real time when they're in one of their mandated courses that they have to take, with a pop-up on student well-being service opportunities, scenarios, situations, talking points. And that's really beginning to show some good fruit of building awareness and helping faculty have those we call them student well-being touch points, not just waiting for the crisis, but at the very beginning of getting ahead of student well-being barriers by promoting well-being in general. So those are a couple of things we're excited about.
Well, and what I love about what you just shared, Michelle, is right, like you're providing some cues to action that aren't just responsive. So, right, like back to that health belief model, but also, you know, I'm a big fan of the concept of like health communication. We do, you know, we can do bite size, snack size, meal size, and goodness knows, like, right, like having people for 3 days for a workshop, like that is a whole buffet, or if you're from Wisconsin, it's a smorgasbord. But those pop-ups into those other pieces, right, are embedding nice bite-sized pieces in, which people might be more likely to retain, and you might have a much broader reach than who opts into workshops about student well-being. I want to make sure Marlena has a chance here if you have some wrap up that you need to do. I sense this conversation could go on a long time because this work is so much like best done in community, right? No one does public health alone. No one does student well-being alone.
Yeah, so I know we do have a couple minutes left before, just if anybody has to leave soon, just want to make sure we get this information. But first I have a feedback form on the right side. So if you want to scan that QR code, go to that link, you can share information on what you like about this webinar, what you'd like to see in the future. I did add Jen's information to this slide too, so you can all see that on the bottom right-hand corner. I also want to make sure you guys know to save the date for our next webinar that's coming up. So that one is creating the conditions for collective impact on your campus on Monday, May 20th at 12 p.m. Eastern time. Joe Zici and Jack Wheeler will be leading that one, and the registration details will be available soon. But like I mentioned, make sure you are signed up for our emails, and then also follow us on LinkedIn to get all those updates. And then my contact information is in the bottom left-hand corner. I know we have 1 minute left, so I'll pass it over to Jen as people are scanning the feedback form and all of that.
Yeah, I just want to thank people for being here. Thank you for contributing. I know how hard it is to have like brain capacity at this time in April in all of our work. And I hope we'll find ways to continue on this conversation, because this is like never a problem we will solve once, but really ongoing and iterative improvement. But thank you for the opportunity to learn from you all today.